Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I got to see this the day before it came out, and I do apologize. Today is December 27th. Way after 12 days after the film was released. I do apologize. My voice is not feeling so well, but let's get straight into it. Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which is directed by Rian Johnson. He also wrote the script. I think George Lucas. I'm looking at the IMDb page right now, and George Lucas, he also got a credit on it as well. But I think he probably got a credit, just his characters are based off of what he's created in the Star Wars mythos. Stars Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Andy Serkis, Lupita Nyong'o, and many more. Gwendolyn Christie did reprise her role for Captain Phasma, and Benicio del Toro was a character by the name of DJ, and things that sort. But so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and warn people right now that I'm going to go into the spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen Star Wars: Last Jedi, I strongly suggest stopping and saving this video and seeing the film and come right back just to get my viewpoints. Maybe our feelings or our instincts are aligned. If you've seen it, let's get straight into it. If you haven't and don't care, it is what it is. There's a lot of good and bad. I think there's a splash of ugly in it as well. I think the ugly part of The Last Jedi is how they handle the character of Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker, this is my feeling. I feel like the preparation and creating the overall, arc for the entire Star Wars franchise wasn't well planned. In contrast to like don't get me wrong, the Avengers, the initiative, they had 10 years in the making. With Kevin, Feige, those guys had a lot of time to prepare and at least have cameos and post-credit scenes that leads up to the upcoming Infinity War. And I understand that, they just purchased, the Star Wars properties 1 or 2 years ago. But it felt like going into The Force Awakens, they rehashed everything from the New Hope. And I think that they really didn't have a concise plan of where they wanted the art to go. And, by having a director like Rian Johnson come in and just be able to write the script from scratch, I think that's awesome that he's capable of doing that. But I think that there isn't a Kevin Feige that's overlooking the entire film. I don't think there is a presence. Don't get me wrong. There are, some well-established producers in all the two films, and I'm assuming will be a part of the third film. But there isn't a concise, in my opinion, a concise vision of the Star Wars arc. It feels like this film is going to be more than 3 films, and in my opinion, I think it should end in 3 films. So getting to Last Jedi, it's well edited when it comes to pace, in my opinion. I think it's one of those films that it just goes quickly and you don't have enough time to think about what the hell you're seeing. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And before you know it, after you see the film, you kind of get a feeling like there's some things are kind of off about it. Number one, don't get me wrong, may she rest in peace, Carrie Fisher. Even her character was like not really in the film the way that they advertised her. They showed her, behind the scenes standing around by this, this command panel with Rian Johnson and all this behind the scenes. Like, oh my God, this is going to be something awesome. And it appears that she's going to have a bigger role than she had in The Force Awakens. And yes, in some capacity, yes, but it feels like, at the same time, she really didn't have that much of camera time. If Leia of Organa, if she has Force abilities, I think that they should have played on that in the first film. It makes no sense for her to have a cool scene at that, but it felt very out of place. And actually, it opened up the opportunity that actually she should have died at this moment. I'm going to have a CGI Carrie Fisher in the third film. I don't know, and it's going to be like a cop out when it comes to how they play her character in the third film. Oh, she's off on a trip. She can't be a part of this next film. That's what I'm assuming. But, you know, they build up an opportunity to kill her off. And they had a CGI moment where she was saved from the, you know, from this particular moment. And then she disappears for a while and then comes back and has a couple more lines and then disappears again. May she rest in peace. But I don't think The Last Jedi was really smartly written. I think that they introduced too many new characters at that, and I think that the Kylo Ren character is not structured well, in my opinion. If he's gonna be like this emotional time bomb, then the best way of comparing him is to Darth Vader. I know they mentioned that in The Force Awakens. Like, he's trying to be like Anakin Skywalker. And it would have been pretty cool to find a correlation between, Kylo Ren's past to Anakin Skywalker's past, and how egotistical and how overly confident these characters were, which led them to the dark side. Now, I disagree when it comes to how they handle Luke Skywalker. I think Luke Skywalker's character, the custodian, she's vacuuming the offices right now, but I was really pissed at how they handle Luke Skywalker. It's okay for this character to be a recluse. I kind of like that idea, in almost a moment of shame. But I didn't like the idea that this guy, he's not a Jedi in this film. As much as he preaches and proclaims about things, he is anti-Jedi. He has all these old books, and he's telling Daisy to don't go off those books and forget about education, forget about history, and just go with what's inside of you, and you're gonna be okay. And that's kind of propaganda. First and foremost, you need to know your history. You need to know what your forefathers have done right or wrong, so you won't repeat the same problems. So in this film, they burn down all these books. Luke Skywalker doesn't spring into action like he should have, in some capacity. He's so bipolar or so depressed to the point that he will sit by to see his loved ones pass away. We find out that's not the case to a certain extent, but he dies in the process by projecting himself across the galaxy to this freaking planet and having this whole scene of him like dodging all these lightsaber attacks. He died in this film. This is my opinion. I think this should have been still a Daisy's character is in a weird place right now, in my opinion. I think Daisy, kind of going with the whole hero's journey, you have to have you have to have a mage. You have to have characters that the protagonist can rely on and learn from, and gain experience and knowledge, so they'll be able to face the antagonist head on and succeed. They don't have that in these films. They kind of had that when it comes to Han Solo, but Han Solo is not a mage. He dies, and then now you have a mage in this film, kind of, or a mentor, and he's not even a mentor. He's an anchor, and he's overly emotional. And in my opinion, he should have never. That they didn't really give that much camera time to the past. I think this film should have had a really solid a flashback that showed Luke building up a new generation of Jedis and it all failing, and Kylo Ren going apeshit and killing them all off, in reflection to Anakin Skywalker. And I think what should have happened, instead of having Luke Skywalker try to kill this kid while he's still in his bed, they should fight. There should be a scene where Luke Skywalker faces off Kylo Ren, and technically, and still use the whole building falling on him. That's fine, but there should have been a scene where Luke Skywalker doesn't want to kill Kylo Ren because he's blood, and he faces off against him. And because of that, because of him not being in a mental and emotional place to kill his nephew takes advantage of that and drops a building on top of him. That should have happened. And then after all the rubble's over, Luke Skywalker is standing in his legacy of dead Jedis. And yes, he can become a recluse, that's fine. But I honestly think that Luke Skywalker should have showed up much more prominent in the first film. They talked about him like Luke Skywalker this, Luke Skywalker that, and what do? He's still a recluse, and what they still kill him off. You know, I think there's something about the idea that you can't have older protagonists being as important as the young protagonist, or more important more important than the young protagonist. I think that there's an upside to that, because the idea of Rey's character, she needs mentorship for her to become the Jedi that she needs to be to overcome the dark side and overcome just these characters. In my opinion, I know Rian Johnson proclaims he enjoys the films, but I don't think that he's one of those type of people, as well as the producers of these films, that they actually read the novels and read what's canon in the books. See, that's the difference between like a Marvel comic, franchise. There's a lot of research of written material that these guys, refer to and read. And even if the director doesn't fully know it, he has enough resource around him or her. In the future, we'll start seeing more lady directors. But Star Wars is one of those films where you have to read the books as well in some capacity, or have a resource where you can refer to them, of understanding the lore beyond what's seen on screen. I think that if that would have happened for Rian Johnson in the production of this film, it would have been handled differently, in my opinion. Luke Skywalker's character never really had a really strong CGI scene yet. And finally we get one to a certain extent, and it was weak, and he dies. And so at the end of the film, like, what am I supposed to do with this shit, Like, okay, Rey's able to lift some rocks. Does that make her a Jedi? A Jedi is much more than just having Force abilities. It's understanding the principles and training and becoming a master. The whole hierarchy of a Jedi, you become a Padawan, and then you become a master. And the only way you become a master is if you understand and know the arts and know the history and know everything that it takes to be a Jedi. And this whole idea of like, let's just burn all the books and the history and let history repeat itself is bullshit. And then we find out that Rey's character didn't have a solid background, and it feels like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are in conflict with each other. It feels like one writer-director is going in one direction, and the other writer is going in a completely different direction, and they're not correlating. Why would you build up everything in a film? Needs to be important. Even the plot twists are still important. They bring us to a place in a film. But you have Luke Skywalker being built up in the first film, and then he ain't shit in the second film, and then you have Rey, who doesn't know where she comes from, and you build all that up, you come to find out she ain't shit neither, so it's like it just for me instinctually, it feels like there was no clear, concise, sound link or goal or guideline, linear guideline to begin this saga and end it. And honestly, in my opinion, I'm not really looking forward to seeing the third film, because Rey's character is not as important as she should have been. And here's something else there too. Why Kylo Ren has been trained. He's a Force wielder, and he has some experience in lightsaber ship. So why is the choreography so weak in these damn films? Like what the fuck? There is no skill. There's no martial art in these fucking choreography. There's none whatsoever. And in my opinion, the character Snoke, if you're gonna kill him off the way you did, then what's the point? what's the point? What was the whole point of him having him in the first film, leading up to the second film? What should have happened is Snoke was if you still want to kill him off in the third film, after Kylo Ren gains another higher level of Force abilities and knowledge and the dark side, and still have Snoke there. But I honestly would like, I wish there should have been a face-off between Snoke and Luke Skywalker. That old legacy is still fighting each other, and then maybe in some way Kylo Ren betrays Luke Skywalker and then kills Snoke to take over the Order, and then Luke Skywalker having to make a decision as to, should he face off against Kylo Ren, now the head of the Order, or in some capacity have Rey train Rey to be the one to do it. And honestly, in my opinion, John Boyega's story arc in the completely different direction. Man, I forgot her name. Rose Tico, which is Kelly Marie Tran. Man, she was so happy to be a part of the. I'm so happy to be a part of this film, and I'm happy for her. I'm happy that she has been. She's now part of this story arc, but in my opinion, it's just a way to deflate the idea of having tension between a black male character and a white character as Rey. In my opinion, I think she was really designed to deflate or deflect the possibility that John Boyega's character and Daisy Ridley's character will link up in the end. Like love will transcend all, But again, their story arc was kind of, let me think. I mean, the whole, I think John Boyega, I think this whole idea of major look shit is bullshit. Like John Boyega was going to sacrifice his life, and right before he does, he Tico crashes her plane to his, and they both safely walk away from it. You're not supposed to die. Like, what the fuck, that part was pretentious in my opinion. And then like, I'm so negative right now, man. I mean, it's just that these new characters that you bring into the story arc that have no really importance to the story, or no importance to the conclusion of this story arc or saga. There's just too many new characters being introduced. Empire Strike Back in comparison to I think Star Wars, Empire Strike Back, in some ways Return of the Jedi should be a template of seeing what would work for those films. If you notice, with Empire Strike Back, they introduced one or two characters. Nothing more, nothing less. Maybe I think Boba Fett was the new character in Empire Strike Back, as well as Lando Calrissian, and that was it. That story was confined. The main characters were part of the same adventure together, to a certain extent. Luke Skywalker was off, learning how to be a Jedi, but with this film, you have you have Finn. I'm sorry, man. Finn's character has been handled like shit, in my opinion. You would think it'd be such a great idea to have a story about a reformed stormtrooper, dude. You know how much potential you could do a badassery, but for some odd reason, everybody has to be custodians. Everybody has to be poor. There's no masculinity. There's no a mature. Like, these characters are not mature, and if you notice a comparison to Empire Strike Back and Star Wars, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi, even though that Luke Skywalker and Leia were kind of young characters, they never felt like insecure, immature characters. They had differences of opinion. Luke Skywalker was out of his element because he's not from the city or not from this type of environment. Leia is mature beyond her age because she's been fighting, the Empire since she was a kid, growing up in this whole Rebel Alliance. And then you have this really crass narcissistic, self-centered, smuggler who now becomes this whole story. And in my opinion, the way they handle John Boyega's character, I mean, there's nothing redeeming about his character. He was mopping the floors before he started to do real stormtrooper stuff, and then he quits. And then now he goes off and does a mission. To what the hell the mission was about. Man, it has something to do with the fact that they wanted to lower a shield. They wanted to lower a shield so they'll be able to get away from the main ship being destroyed. And it was the tracking beam, the tracking beam, like it's very similar to A New Hope. Like they have to disable this tracking beam, so when this ship goes in the light speed and comes out, that destroyer won't be able to know where they're at, And then why would you have C-3PO and R2-D2 in the film that they don't even have? They have even less camera time in comparison to the first film. It's bullshit. Don't sell R2-D2 characters, when you don't give them any fucking camera time. Those androids are still important now as they were back then. It feels like Disney is just trying to erase everything about the past, and I feel like they're egotistical to think that they can create another hit the same way as the previous Star Wars. I mean, I don't know, man. We're living in a time where quantity is more important than quality. It's not about how good a film is. It's about how well it sells. And there was a time in our society where, a film wouldn't be successful if it wasn't good. But now, as long as there's a lot of CGI in the film, then people will still take their kids and not really care about that. So, in my opinion, The Last Jedi is more of a cartoon than it is a feature film. And then you have these red guards, fighting Rey and Kylo, and the choreography was so weak, man. It was so fucking weak. There was no skill in it. It felt like Ryan was showing them how to choreograph it. You swing like this, and you do this, and then you swing it down, and they dodge, and then even just like the pace felt like it was like choreography. It's not like kung fu shit. It ain't like some of these Taiwanese films where they feel like this the pace feels kind of sound, just right. But yeah, I mean, like Rose Tico, I don't know what that character is going to be about. She was lower end type character who didn't have shit to her name, was a mechanic. Her sister dies, and now she's with a janitor. But on the other side, technically they're in the same profession. Like now Finn, who didn't even have a fucking name, who was a janitor on the order side, now potentially has a love interest. Kylo Ren's character is the weakest villain ever. He's not memorable. He was more memorable with that mask on. And Ryan, who's supposed to be this expert that he got paid to do it, we need to strip the mask. We need to have a face. The producer's like, yeah, you're right. No, the coolest thing about Kylo Ren was his fucking mask. Okay? And then once you start seeing him having temper tantrums and shit, it's like, dude, I'm not. Even now he has temper tantrums. There's nothing redeeming about his character. There's nothing cool about his character as a villain. Darth Vader. The reason why Darth Vader is such rememberable is not only because of his suit and his mask, it's because of his swagger. He didn't have to scream and have temper tantrums. He's been there, done that. There's something cool about having villains that have been there and done that, or somewhat emotionally and mentally kept. Even though that they're doing genocide, but there's something kept about them. That's more scarier than having a guy being told, I don't need you, and having a temper tantrum in a fucking elevator. That doesn't make him scary. That makes him fucking weak. Kylo Ren should have gone down a journey, in my opinion, that stripped him from his temper tantrums and made him into an ultimate machine, and then completely submitting to Snoke, and then portray him. That would have been so dope. But no, we just have a guy having temper tantrums, and even to the very end, he had a temper tantrum. You know. Sorry, guys. It's 25 minutes. I've been rambling about this film. But again, if you haven't seen it, just check it out. I mean, you have difference of opinion. A lot of people will like this film. I already see it right now with the reviews. And honestly, man, I'm gonna say some controversial stuff. You know, I'm a fan of Kevin Smith, but I don't like watching his reviews because he's politically correct when it comes to Hollywood. You know that he won't really voice his opinion, his true opinion about the film, you know, because it might mess up his money, you know. And then Rotten Tomatoes is not really a reputable source, in my opinion, because they're partially owned by Warner Brothers. We don't know the percentage. Warner Brothers could actually own them outright, you know. So having a critic type of website or affiliate being owned by a studio, it contradicts the mission. Critics should always be independent. So all due respect to everybody on this film, I didn't like it. That's why I actually returned my ticket. I bought 2 tickets. One I saw at the ArcLight Theater, and then I was due to watch it again at 8 a.m. at the Chinese Theater in LA. And I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna get my $20 back. And I got a refund through Fandango. And then with some of these reviews with Mark Hamill, you could tell he's upset about it. Like, he's kind of like, whatever. This is some bullshit, you know? Like, the whole idea of bringing these characters back was just to kill them off. Like, man, when can we see, like, an old character, you know, survive and be mentally, emotionally sound? Or even if he's in a ruckus of mourning over what has happened, to have him spring back and be a pivotal part of the resistance with Rey. You know, Rey is a character that needs a lot of development, and she's not giving it whatsoever. You know, I mean, this whole idea, I need to go face off with him. Like, come on, man. Like, you went from having a stick to, like, you know, randomly swinging a blade. That you play video games, like a fighting game, and then you face off against a button masher, and that button masher wins. She was a button masher in that moment, you know, but there's no skill in her craft. So that's it, you guys. I'm sorry for rambling, but Star Wars: The Last Jedi is an average film. It's not a great film. It's not that bad of a film, but they did a really bad job with Luke Skywalker's character, not giving him nothing and not really following the hero's journey in which George Lucas and the writers of the original trilogy, not the prequel, followed. You know, I think it's important for that to continue to be followed. And Disney needs to just end this saga and then start off brand new and be like, have like a Kevin Feige team where they develop and look at all the written material and do like Knights of the Old Republic or something and structure it from ground up and stay consistent. No matter if there's a new director that wants to write the fucking script, he or she needs to follow the guidelines or else, you know? And I don't think this is the case. I think they just have a great property and like, fuck it, we'll just do whatever we want on this property and people will eat it up. But fuck this, I'm not going to eat it up any further. Alright, you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and shake off this negativity from me. And peace.